the invitation was a masterpiece of understated wealth. The cardstock was thick and creamy, feeling like velvet and money under my fingertips. The names, Sabrina and Declan, were embossed in a swirling gold font that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. It smelled faintly of vanilla and victory. Their victory, not mine. I'd been holding it for 10 minutes, my thumb tracing the sharp, elegant edges. It was a beautiful object, a perfect symbol of the beautiful life they had built on the wreckage of mine. But it wasn't the invitation itself that made my throat tighten and my stomach clench into a cold, hard knot. It was the note. Tucked inside was a smaller card, the kind meant for a brief, personal message. In my sister Sabrina's flawless, looping cursive, the kind she practiced for hours as a teenager to look effortlessly perfect, were 10 perfectly penned, venomous words. Come see what true love looks like. Hope you found a new roommate, winky face. The winking emoji at the end was the final twist of the knife. It was a tiny, digital smirk that said, I won. You lost. And I want you to watch. My name is Ren. I'm 29, and for the last 6 months, I had been living in the quiet, gray aftermath of a betrayal so profound it had reshaped the landscape of my entire life. My younger sister, the radiant, golden Sabrina, had stolen my fiancé, the charming, ambitious Declan. It wasn't a quiet affair, a shameful secret discovered in the dark. It was a conquest, a public relations campaign she had waged with ruthless efficiency, ending with her flashing a diamond ring, a bigger one than mine had been, of course, all over her heavily curated Instagram feed. And now this. An invitation to her wedding. To sit in a pew and watch the man who was supposed to be my husband place a ring on my sister's finger. This note wasn't an olive branch, it was a demand for a front row seat to my own humiliation. They didn't just want to be happy, they needed me to be miserable. They needed a witness to their triumph. Little did they know, I was going to give them a performance they would never forget. To understand why I did what I did, you have to understand the dynamic of my family. It was a solar system, and Sabrina was the sun. The rest of us, me, my parents, everyone, were just planets, caught in her gravitational pull, our orbits dictated by her whims and her brilliance. She was the golden child, and I was, the other one. The quiet one. The dusty one. I remember one Christmas, just a year before everything fell apart. Declan, my fiancé at the time, had given me the most thoughtful gift, a rare, leather-bound first edition of a history text I'd mentioned wanting months ago. My heart swelled. He saw me. As I traced the faded gold leaf on the cover, Sabrina let out a theatrical sigh from across the room. Oh, Declan, she pouted, holding up the designer handbag he'd given her. It's gorgeous, of course. But Ren's is so intellectual. My mother, Helen, immediately rushed to her side. Now, sweetie, your gift is practical and beautiful, just like you. Ren has her hobbies. The word hobbies was delivered with a pitying smile. In an instant, my thoughtful gift was reframed as evidence of my strangeness, my inability to be fun and normal like Sabrina. My work was a constant source of this quiet condescension. As a freelance historical preservation consultant, I spent my days deep in archives, property deeds, and architectural blueprints. To my family, it was a quirky little job. They couldn't comprehend a career that didn't involve brand partnerships and sponsored posts. Still playing with those dusty old books, Ren, my father, Jean, would ask, ruffling my hair as if I were 12. This condescension reached its peak one afternoon. I was at my desk, frantically trying to close a complex, multi-million-dollar deal for a historical property syndicate I secretly ran. It was the biggest deal of my career, one that would set me up for life. My family thought I was just typing away on her little blog. In the middle of my stress, Sabrina waltzed in, phone in hand. Guess what? She squealed. Declan's taking me to Tuscany. A surprise trip. Tuscany. The trip Declan and I had been meticulously planning for our honeymoon for over a year. I felt the air leave my lungs. I looked at Declan, who just gave a weak shrug, a silent plea for me to just go along with it. My mother clapped her hands. "Oh, how romantic. Ren, you don't mind, do you? You're always so busy with your work anyway." It was a statement, not a question. My disappointment was an inconvenience to their happiness. But the real moment, the one that cracked the foundation of my world, happened on a quiet Tuesday. I borrowed Declan's iPad to look up a recipe. His messages were still synced. I wasn't snooping, I swear. But her name was at the top of the list, and the preview text was impossible to ignore. My blood ran cold. I clicked. It was all there. Months of it. Not just secret dates and "I love yous." It was them, together, mocking me. There were photos of them in bed in our apartment while I was away at a boring history conference. And then I saw the message, the one that would echo in my head for months. It was from Sabrina. "Declan, she's going to be devastated. I feel awful. Sabrina, don't worry, she'll get over it. She can enjoy being poor and alone." Poor and alone. That's what they thought of me. That was my future, in their eyes. A pathetic spinster with her dusty books, while they jetted off to Tuscany. In that moment, sitting in the quiet of my living room, the life I thought I had evaporated, leaving behind nothing but the cold, hard proof of their contempt. Something in me didn't just break that day, it hardened. The part of me that had spent a lifetime craving their approval, that made excuses for Sabrina's selfishness and my parents' blindness, simply died. The grief was immense, but underneath it, something else began to grow, a cold, crystalline resolve. They thought I was poor. They had no idea. My quirky hobby was a front. 5 years ago, I had used a small inheritance from my grandmother to found Ethelgard Estates, a boutique private equity firm specializing in undervalued historical properties. My father, a history professor who was brilliant but always struggled with money, had taught me the value of the past. He always said, "Knowledge is the only wealth that matters." I took his lesson to heart, but I also vowed to never know the kind of quiet desperation he faced. I built my company in secret, letting my family believe I was just scraping by. The anonymity was my shield. It ensured that anyone who came into my life, like Declan, was there for me, not for my net worth. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. The day after I found the texts, I made a video call to the one person in the world who knew the truth, my Aunt Joan, my late father's sister. She was a retired corporate lawyer and the only board member of my company. Her face appeared on the screen, sharp and intelligent. She took one look at me and her expression softened. "Oh, honey. What did they do?" she asked, no preamble needed. I told her everything. I didn't cry. My voice was eerily calm. When I was done, she was silent for a long moment, her anger a palpable force even through the screen. "What do you want to do, Ren?" she finally asked. A slow, cold smile touched my lips for the first time in days. "Joan," I said, my voice low and steady. "I think it's time for Ethelgard Estates to perform an asset review. Specifically, our flagship property in Napa Valley. The Seraphine Vineyard Estate. I want to be more hands-on with its management going forward." Aunt Joan's eyes widened slightly before a slow, grim smile of understanding spread across her face. "I'll draw up the paperwork." The first seed was planted. Confronting Declan was like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. He didn't have the decency to look ashamed. He looked relieved. We sat in the living room of the apartment we were supposed to share for the rest of our lives, the air thick with his cheap cologne and betrayal. "Ren, I never meant to hurt you," he began, the classic opening line of a coward. "Didn't you?" I asked, my voice flat. Because conspiring with my sister for months and mocking my life behind my back feels incredibly intentional. He had the gall to flinch, as if I were the one being unfair. It wasn't like that. What Sabrina and I have, it's just electric. It's this connection. She gets my ambition, you know. She pushes me. The implication was clear. I, with my quiet life and dusty books, was an anchor, holding back his magnificent ship. The man whose career I had secretly turbocharged, whose promotions I had engineered from the shadows, was telling me I wasn't ambitious enough for him. The urge to laugh was so strong it felt like a scream. "So you're leaving," I stated. It wasn't a question. "I think it's for the best," he said, already looking past me, toward his bright, shiny, Sabrina-filled future. "We're just on different paths." The conversation with my parents was somehow worse. I sat them down in their beige-on-beige living room, a place where no strong emotion had ever been permitted to exist. I told them the bare facts. Declan had left me for Sabrina. My mother, Helen, wrung her hands. "Oh, Ren. This is so messy." My father, Jean, cleared his throat. "Declan is a fine young man with a bright future. Sabrina is, well, she's a go-getter. Sometimes, sparks just fly." There was no anger on my behalf. No condemnation of their other daughter's actions. Just a placid, infuriating acceptance. "She's your sister, Ren," my mother said, her voice taking on a placating tone. "And you were always, you know, quieter. More of an introvert. Maybe Declan needed someone more outgoing. Don't be too hard on them." They weren't just taking her side. They were telling me the fault was mine. My personality, my interests, my very essence was the reason my fiancé had left me for my sister. I was too quiet, too boring, too much me. I had been betrayed 3 times, once by my fiancé, once by my sister, and now, in the most painful way imaginable, by the 2 people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I walked out of their house that day and didn't look back. The next few months were a blur of logistics and quiet rage. I moved into a new apartment, a sleek, minimalist space with a view of the city that would have made my family's eyes water. I buried myself in my work, the clean, cold logic of contracts and property values a balm on my shredded emotions. Meanwhile, Sabrina and Declan's love story played out in a nauseating, highly filtered technicolor on social media. There were pictures of them in Tuscany, my Tuscany, Declan looking adoringly at Sabrina as she posed with a glass of wine. Hashtags like #PowerCouple, #Destiny, and #SorryNotSorry littered their posts. They were building their narrative, casting themselves as the romantic heroes of an epic love story. And in their story, I was the boring, forgettable prologue. Then came the engagement party. It was a lavish affair at some rooftop bar, and of course, I wasn't invited. But I saw the pictures. Sabrina, in a glittering silver dress, flashing a diamond ring the size of a small planet. In her main post, a long, gushing caption about finding her soulmate, she announced the wedding venue. "I am so excited to announce we'll be getting married at the most magical place on earth, the Seraphine Vineyard Estate in Napa." It was impossible to get a booking, but my amazing fiancé pulled so many strings. #meant to be. I read the words on my phone, sitting in my silent office overlooking the city. The Seraphine Vineyard Estate. My flagship property. The crown jewel of Ethelgard Estates, which I had purchased 3 years prior. The place wasn't just booked. Its entire event calendar was managed by a firm that reported directly to me. Declan hadn't pulled strings, he'd used his corporate account, which had a partnership with my venue, a partnership I had personally approved. That was when the invitation arrived. And just moments after I'd slit the envelope open with a letter opener, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sabrina. "Enjoy being poor and alone." And there it was. The final, clarifying peace. All this time, a tiny, stupid part of me had held on to a sliver of hope. Hope that maybe, one day, they would see me. That my success, if I ever revealed it, would finally earn their respect. That my quiet, steady love was worth something. That text message didn't just insult me. It murdered that hope. It told me, in no uncertain terms, that my value in their eyes was zero. It wasn't about love or destiny. It was a game to them. A game of status and power, and they believed they had won. In the cold silence of my apartment, I felt the last of my grief for the family I thought I had wither and die. In its place, a calm, chilling certainty took root. Game on. I stared at the text message on my phone screen, the words glowing in the dim light of my living room. Enjoy being poor and alone. My thumb hovered over the block button, the delete button. The old Wren would have cried. The old Wren would have deleted it, trying to erase the hurt. The old Wren would have let the poison seep in, confirming all her deepest fears about her own worthlessness. But the old Wren was gone. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel a sting. I felt nothing. A profound and total absence of the pain that had been my constant companion for months. It was the calm at the center of a hurricane. With a slow, deliberate movement, I placed my phone face down on the polished concrete coffee table. I walked to my office and sat in my leather chair, the city lights twinkling below like a fallen constellation. I powered on my laptop, the screen illuminating my face. My fingers flew across the keyboard, typing in a series of passwords and authentications that would look like gibberish to anyone else. The secure admin portal for Ethelgard Estates loaded. I navigated to the Asset Management tab, then to Seraphine Vineyard Estate. Under Events Calendar, I clicked on the date, September 15th. There it was. Wedding, Sabrina and Declan. I clicked on the file. All the details were there. The catering contract. The floral arrangements. The payment history. Venue fee paid by corporate account, Sterling Thorne Investments. Declan's company. My company's preferred partner. My cursor hovered over the big, red button that read, Cancel Event. It would be so easy. A single click, and their dream would turn to dust. But that was too simple. Too clean. It wasn't enough. They didn't deserve an email. They deserved a spectacle. I closed the portal and picked up my phone. I dialed the number for my personal lawyer. He picked up on the second ring. Alistair Finch. Alistair, it's Wren, I said, my voice as calm and even as a frozen lake. Regarding the event booking at Seraphine on the 15th. I need a favor. I need you to be there in person. Not as my lawyer. As the estate manager. And have the paperwork ready. All of it. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, it really helps out. And let us know what city you're watching from in the comments below. Every comment helps the story reach more people. Thank you so much, and now, back to the story. The day of the wedding arrived with the kind of perfect, sun-drenched beauty that only Northern California can produce. The sky over Napa Valley was a piercing, cloudless blue. As I drove my car, a quiet, unassuming dark gray sedan that belied its powerful engine, up the long, winding gravel driveway of the Seraphine Vineyard Estate, I had to admit my sister had good taste. Or at least, she was good at picking things that looked expensive. Rows of ancient, gnarled vines stretched out on either side, their leaves a vibrant green. At the crest of the hill stood the main villa, a magnificent structure of old stone and dark timber, draped in ivy and blooming wisteria. It looked like a centuries-old piece of Tuscany, airlifted and dropped into the heart of wine country. It was my favorite acquisition. I parked in the guest lot and took a moment. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. There were no signs of the heartbroken woman I had been 6 months ago. My hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. My makeup was minimal but sharp. And I wasn't wearing a mournful black dress, the expected attire for a jilted ex-fiancé. I was wearing a suit. A stunning, architectural power suit in a shade of cream so pale it was almost white. It was custom-made, with clean lines, a sharp shoulder, and a cut that screamed authority. It wasn't a wedding dress, but it was a statement. It was armor. As I walked toward the ceremony area on the grand lawn, heads turned. Whispers followed me like the rustling of leaves. I saw my cousins, my aunts, all the flying monkeys of my family, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. My parents intercepted me near the front. My mother, Helen, clutched my arm, her fingers digging in. "Ren, thank you for coming," she said in a strained whisper. "It means so much to Sabrina. Now please, try to look happy for her. No scenes today." "I wouldn't dream of it," I said, my voice smooth as silk. I gave her a small, serene smile that didn't reach my eyes. The smile seemed to unnerve her more than tears would have. I found my assigned seat, in the back row, naturally, tucked away behind a large floral arrangement. From there, I watched the prelude to the disaster. I watched Declan, looking handsome and nervous in his tuxedo. I watched my parents, beaming with pride, escorting my sister down the aisle. Sabrina was radiant, a vision in white lace and smug satisfaction. When she passed my row, her eyes flickered toward me for a microsecond, a flash of pure, triumphant malice. I just smiled back. The show was about to begin. The ceremony was a ceremony. The officiant spoke of love, of destiny, of two souls finding their perfect match. The words washed over me, meaningless platitudes in the face of the ugly truth. Sabrina and Declan exchanged sappy, self-written vows they probably copied from the internet. They gazed into each other's eyes, the picture of devotion. The crowd was captivated. I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching a movie. I was merely an observer, waiting for my cue. My heart wasn't racing. My hands, resting in my lap, were perfectly still. This wasn't about passion or heartbreak anymore. It was about business. A hostile takeover of my own life. Then came the moment. The officiant beamed at the crowd. "And now, if there is anyone present who has just cause why this couple should not be lawfully joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace." The traditional, pregnant pause. The rustle of expensive fabrics. The birds chirping in the ancient oak trees. Silence. Then, the scrape of a chair on the grass. I stood up. My movement was calm, deliberate. But in the absolute stillness of the moment, it was as loud as a gunshot. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Over 200 pairs of eyes swiveled to face me. I could feel their collective shock, their disapproval, their delicious, horrified anticipation. Declan's face went pale, then flushed with angry red. Sabrina's perfectly made-up face twisted into a mask of furious disbelief. She had wanted me here to witness this, but she had expected tears, not defiance. A smirk touched her lips. She thought this was my final, pathetic plea. "Ren, sit down," my father hissed from the front row, his voice a furious whisper that carried in the silence. I ignored him. I ignored all of them. I fixed my gaze on the officiant, a kind-looking man who now looked utterly bewildered. And I spoke. My voice, amplified by the perfect acoustics of the open lawn, was clear, steady, and devoid of emotion. "I object." The whispers erupted. Sabrina's smirk widened. This was exactly the drama she wanted. The poor, heartbroken sister making a fool of herself. I took a slow walk from the back row, down the center aisle that my sister had just glided down. My heels made no sound on the soft grass. Every eye followed me. When I reached the front, I stopped, not in front of Declan, but to the side, addressing the officiant directly. "My apologies, Father," I said, my tone respectful. "Allow me to clarify. I am not objecting to this union." A wave of confusion rippled through the guests. Sabrina's smile faltered. I let the silence hang for a beat before delivering the next line. "I am objecting to this union taking place here." The officiant blinked. I don't understand." "My objection," I continued, my voice gaining a hard, legal edge, "is on the grounds of contract law. This event is proceeding under fraudulent pretenses and is in material breach of the venue agreement." The spectacle had begun. Sabrina let out a sound that was half laugh, half shriek. "What are you talking about? Are you insane? My fiancé's company paid a fortune for this place. We have a contract." "Precisely," I said, turning my calm gaze on her for the first time. The look on her face was priceless, a cocktail of rage, confusion, and dawning fear. Declan's company, Sterling Thorne Investments, did indeed pay the booking fee. They are one of our preferred corporate partners. I emphasized the word "our." Declan finally found his voice. "Ren, what is this? What stupid game are you playing? Your little hobby blog doesn't have corporate partners." "You're right," I said. "It doesn't." At that moment, a man in a sharply tailored gray suit who had been standing discreetly near the villa stepped forward. He was holding a leather portfolio. The guests probably assumed he was the wedding coordinator or the venue manager. In a way, he was. "Alistair," I said, acknowledging him. "Miss Hale," he replied with a crisp nod. "Just as you requested." He handed me the portfolio. I took it and turned to face my stunned family and their even more stunned guests. Declan is right. My work as a freelance consultant is quiet. What my family has never known is that for the past 5 years, my hobby has been running my private equity firm. I opened the portfolio. Inside was a single, heavy document, embossed with a gold seal. "This," I announced, my voice ringing out across the lawn, "is the deed and articles of incorporation for the Seraphine Vineyard Estate, LLC. It was purchased in its entirety 3 years ago by my firm, Ethelgard Estates." I looked directly at Sabrina, whose face was now the color of her dress. I let the final, devastating truth land with the force of a physical blow. "I am the owner." Absolute, dead silence. You could have heard a grape drop from a vine 100 yards away. The world seemed to stop spinning. The smugness, the pride, the triumphant joy, it all evaporated from the air, replaced by a thick, suffocating dread. Sabrina's mouth opened and closed silently, like a fish. Declan stared at me, his face a slack mask of utter disbelief. He looked like he was trying to solve a complex math problem in his head and failing spectacularly. My parents, Jean and Helen, were frozen in the front row, their faces toggling between confusion and dawning, gut-wrenching horror. They were finally seeing me. Not the quiet, dusty daughter. They were seeing a stranger. A woman with a power they couldn't comprehend. My voice, when I spoke again, was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a shard of glass. "You sent me a text, Sabrina," I said, not needing to pull out my phone, telling me to enjoy being poor and alone. "You thought you won. You thought you had taken everything. But you made a fatal error. You planned your victory party in my house, paid for by a corporate account that my company subsidizes." I turned to my lawyer, my voice shifting to one of command. "Alistair. As we discussed, the contract for this event is now null and void due to material misrepresentation and fraud by the client. Please begin escorting the former wedding party and their guests off my property. Immediately." That's when the chaos erupted. Sabrina finally broke. A raw, guttural scream tore from her throat. "No. You can't. You can't do this. Declan was speechless, his entire future flashing before his eyes. The promotion, the status, the rich wife, all of it was tied to this lie, and it was all unraveling. My parents were on their feet, stammering. Ren, honey, please, we can talk about this. But I was already walking away. I turned my back on the beautiful, perfect wedding that had turned into a scene of beautiful, perfect destruction. I didn't need to see the rest. I could hear it. Sabrina's hysterics, my mother's pleading, Mr. Finch's calm, firm voice instructing security. As I reached the end of the aisle, a final, venomous scream followed me. You bitch. You ruined my life. I paused. I stopped right where I stood, my back still to them. For one final moment, I considered just keeping on walking. But she deserved an answer. I turned my head slightly, looking back over my shoulder at the wreckage of her perfect day. My face was calm. My voice was final. No, Sabrina, I said, loud enough for them all to hear. I just stopped paying for it. Then I walked away, and I didn't look back. My family is now shattered, and they call me cruel and unforgiving. But I feel like for the first time in my life, I honored my own worth instead of their expectations. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for evicting my sister and her groom from their own wedding? Thank you for listening to the entire story. If you enjoyed this, please show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and ringing the bell so you don't miss the next one. Sharing the video with a friend who loves a good revenge story helps more than you know. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next story.